Good evening. What's up? Hello, folks. Welcome to our stream today. Hmm. I just realized as I was just in the waiting room that I just forgot to post on Twitter. So, so what does that mean? Does that mean we have fewer people today? Let's see. We'll find out. Today, I mostly wanted to do some Q and A, do some. I actually want to go through some AI tools. I was just browsing just before this. So maybe we'll do that. Maybe today we wrap up early, bro. I'm actually super, let's just say, um, inactive today. Kind of inactive today. What's up, Satisfying Clicks? Hello, Grace. What's up, Anu Meha? Hey, Vinay. What's up? Abhi, Rishabh. No worries, bro. Ian. No worries at all. What's up, Kritika? Josh. What's up, Josh? What's up, Sparsh? Yo. Hello, Ashwin. So let's jump in. Let's explore some stuff. Um, I've been going a little deeper into AI because number one, you can't avoid AI anymore, right? Let's see. Did I have something in my bookmarks? You can't avoid AI anymore, and I know there's more noise than signal in the world of AI, which is more threads and shit. But I think now whatever, it feels a little bit more real to me right now, right? So I'm gonna just show you some stuff today. I think we can talk about AI. I think I would love to do that. Mostly being able to explore these tools. And yeah, haha. What's up? Welcome. Just seeing the chats. Hmm. So number one, I was checking out AutoGPT, guys. So real quick, how many of you have checked out AutoGPT before? Now this is a client, AutoGPT client, which is AutoGPT client called Agent GPT. This is where you can easily run it within the browser rather than locally running it. But one thing that I really loved about this was that this, um, unlike the standard interaction paradigm of the last couple of weeks, which is ever since ChatGPT came out in December. Ever since then, the interaction model, the type of interactions you and I do with these AIs has been chat, right? And chatbots, a conversational flow back and forth has kind of been the main thing. But what really caught my attention about this Agent GPT is that it shifts that a little bit, right? The interaction model is still kind of chat based, right? You still have to talk and interact and tell it to do things and tell it to change what it did, right? Do it differently, things like that. But it's not just a open text box type of thing, right? This is something that's kind of different. So let me show you this. What goal are we doing today? And I want to use something do something that's useful to all of you. But let me ask you this question, right? This is a chat prompt for you guys. In fact, what goal would you like to try today, right? If you had an AI, intelligence age shit, right? If you had an AI that was helping you with a particular goal, what goal would that be? And just give me some chats. We'll try out some of these. I've done a few myself, and I was kind of blown away, bro. I ran a cohort GPT, which is with the goal of running a design cohort, and and let me just say, I'm so happy that this shit is not in here anymore, right? I'm so happy that it's might seem counterintuitive, but that other people can run design cohorts if they wanted to. It was a pretty good outcome. But let me know. Tell me some chats, and we'll try this out real quick. Okay. And so to explain the interaction model, this is when it gets closer into AI is taking our job territory, right? It's closer there because with something like ChatGPT, you could always make the argument that, yeah, I mean, people will still want to hire designers because, or not designers, let's just say in general, since we're talking about AI, it's not just design jobs, right? It's all jobs, all knowledge work. The interaction model, this one is kind of a good one because this approximates what it's like working with a intern, working with a human, right? So here I will give you a goal and you have to go figure out how exactly it's done, what are the individual steps, and then you have to, and then, to some extent the agent can actually run these steps, but then it gives you an idea of how you should approach a problem in the first place, right? So I'm seeing a few chats, not so many, um, but let's just use something like, let me show you cohort gpt, okay? um, Run, uh, the goal is to be an AI design mentor. um, no man, this is not what I tried. Let me think a little deeper. How do I frame this? Cohort gpt to plan a self-taught, let's just call this roadmap GPT. Since we were talking about roadmap in the previous this thing, to plan a self-taught UI UX design roadmap for the next 3 months, right? Let's say one of you here came here and you said, the thing that you could help me with most, GPT, would be if you could actually create a design roadmap for the next 3 months with daily readings and tasks, right? Now let's deploy this. The very interesting thing though is this is just an individual demo, but let's just look at the chat model, the model here, right? So you give it a goal, you don't tell it how to do it, you say you have to figure it out. There is a thinking process that happens, which is the chat. In the end, the backend, this is still using the chat GPT or GPT 3.5, maybe not, probably not GPT 4 though, APIs to run this computation. But what it's doing is it's thinking about, if I had to do this, how would I do? Right. And then what it does is it creates tasks for itself. So the first task it's added is, let's just see, analyze current trends and best practice. So I don't know how it can do that. I don't think it can, but I think what it's suggesting is you should do this. Whether that's true or not, I'll give some commentary as well. But research and compile a list of recommended reading materials. Okay. Daily task list. So these are the tasks that it's created for itself, right? On the back end, you can think about it as, for each of these, it's running a chat GPT prompt for itself and saying, I'm going to not only figure out what needs to be done, but for each individual thing, I'm going to do it and I'm going to execute it, right? So you can kind of see this log here. Now let's come to this first one, executing, analyze. It's trying to do the first task, which is analyzing current trends. It's saying do all this and it'll be able to identify. Okay, let's keep going. It's very basic shit. That's the main thing I'm reading, since it's main thing I'm realizing, since it is since our prompt is very basic, and the fact that this is just chat GPT. Daily task list. Now, to be very honest, ChatGPT alone did a better job at this. I remember asking ChatGPT for I said, give me a 30-day roadmap that I can follow. And it actually did a really good job. But let's see. Reading materials related to... bro, see, now the problem with something like this, I don't have to, of course, tell you, is that if the first task on learn UI UX design is to go read 7 books, 10 books, you're not going to do it. But okay, good try. Create daily design challenges. Oh, nice. Complete at least one challenge per day. Seek feedback from peers. Explore additional resources. One way I can also think about this, right, is if I gave you a goal, right? Think about this. If you gave yourself a goal that you wanted to accomplish, but you didn't know how exactly to do it, one simple thing that you can try for this is definitely asking to see how does it think about breaking these tasks down, right? Just this thinking thing alone, I think is a really cool interaction. Additional resources, design communities and software. Month 1 week. Oh, unfortunately, the formatting is fucked. This would have been better. And I think it's also capping the number of problem statements, so the number of tokens. What do you guys think of that? Was that interesting? So personally, right, when I look at this, of course, this demo alone, not so interesting, right? This is like the bare minimum. But imagine running this on your computer. You could have, like, this is MVP Jarvis, right? This is MVP Jarvis, where you can say, these are my tasks, figure out what needs to be done and do it. In some ways, this is the kind of stuff that I would hire an employee for. Not me individually. I'm just saying somebody would hire an employee for. But yeah, that's something I thought was interesting. But let me show you the next interesting thing. Generative agents, interactive simulacra of human behavior. So this paper, and let's open the PDF. This is it's actually an HCI paper, right? HCI AI paper, human computer interaction with artificial intelligence, and it's also Pokemon. So like, this was when I saw it, I was like, wow, I've got to go through this and probably talk about it on stream. But check this out. Overall, these researchers, what they did, let's see, let's open these up. Am I still live, guys? I'm seeing like 0 chats, but that's fine. So what they did, these folks here, is they created a Pokemon sandbox, right? Now they call this reminiscent of Sims. I don't know why they do that. This is clearly Pokemon. Most annoying thing about this paper, just having to read Sims everywhere. This is Pokemon, guys. You I don't know why. If you can say Sims, you can say Pokemon. Like, what the fuck? Really pissed off at that. But what these guys did for this research project is they created a bunch of generative agents within this sandbox, this Pokemon like environment. You can kind of imagine, okay, Little Root Town, fucking, this is the, you can kind of imagine these are the different houses or the different gyms or the different towns in Pokemon. You can just imagine that. And the only difference is, imagine if, unlike Pokemon, when you went into someone's house, and instead of the person just saying, oh, I went to the, oh, wouldn't it be great to have a moonstone? Now, it's the same canned response, right? What this does is it actually gives life to each of these NPCs. And the way they did that was crazy, bro. Hold on. Let me show you. So the way they did this, overall, what they're doing is they're creating a believable proxy of human behavior. Now, don't be fooled by the comforting graphics. What this is talking about is, how do you create a simulation with these NPCs and use the simulation for useful stuff, right? So some of the stuff that this paper talks about, one is just the idea of, so one of the experiments that they did was they talked about, let's show you this diagram, right? So these were overall the areas. You have these people walking around. They initialized these avatars. So they said, John Lynn is this thing, loves to help people, looking for ways to make process. His wife has the son does this. John loves family. Bro, when I saw this, I was like, yo, it's like crazy social commentary that most people are just the average of whatever they've got going on right now and their top weighted connections. But anyways, what I'm not going to talk about every single detail. I'm sure you can read this at some other point. But the agents are having conversations with each other, right? These conversations are in some way based on this. So when you look at this, some of this prompt includes this, right? What are the person's beliefs and opinions? So, of course, the family stuff, but then, and then these are probably the things it's going to talk about. These are the person's job, kids, but then it talks about individual relationships with some of these people. And so, setting this up, initiating it, and then just running it, these folks have conversations. They think about, or when I say think, they're running certain prompts, but they're doing certain actions, they're catching up, and a lot of this is based on prompt. However, I think that they are doing a little bit, there's some introspection or something that getting them to do. Let's see if I find that. Basically this, the perceiving, there is a memory stream, they're retrieving certain memories, right? So there's a log of interactions as well, so it can think about past interactions that, oh, I had with Brandon, or like, yeah, you gave me the running shoes or whatever. So it's maintaining that state, memory state. And check it out. These are the, just to give you an example, it's these are the perceptions, and so the memory stream of what happened. Uh, Now there's a situation that happens, which is excited to be planning a Valentine's Day party. And what happens in the paper, and what I'll do is, let me just share the link here. Yeah, you can check it out. What happens is, real time, when something like this happens, there is a retrieval from this uh, let's just say memory stream and whatever, where it says this is the recency, this is the importance, this is the relevance, right? And based on that, it kind of, its behavior happens. Now this is very interesting to think about, because if you guys have been paying attention, on these streams as well, we talk about the idea of beliefs, right? When you are designing for a certain group of people, you have to think about what beliefs they have, because beliefs drives beliefs drive behavior, right? If somebody thinks that, ordering food online is healthy or something like that, then they are, that belief, wherever it came from, right? Once they hold it, it will lead to behavior, which is, I am going to order food now because I now have that belief, right? So very interesting to see a prototype of that right here. So what they do is, they drop some information in this thing, right? So saying that this person is having a party, and they are able to, in this simulation, map out how news spreads, right? So check this out. Planning a Valentine's Day party at Hobbs Cafe, right? Isabella does this. Now, running the simulation of these agents, you can see that Isabella told Giorgio, Isabella told Sam, Sam, in a future conversation with Jennifer, invited Jennifer as well. And so overall, they could see the diffusion path for an individual piece of information. Total of 12 agents heard about the party at Hobbs Cafe by the end of the simulation. So super interesting. What are some, let's just say, applications of this? Now, again, this is a demo, right? They've also created this that you can play around with. It is not the actual demo, but they're playing the replay of the thing that they ran. So you can actually click into some of these characters, see what they're up to. There's not much you can do, to be very honest. But let's do some lateral thinking, right? As a designer, when you see this, what ideas come to your mind? What does this imply, right? It does require a little bit of lateral thinking, a little bit of creativity, but let's explore what this could mean. One thing you could do is, you could actually simulate environments very easily, right? Let's say you, for whatever reason, wanted to create a simulation of an office, and you wanted each of these, if you wanted to, let's say, run the simulation of an office, and you wanted each of these to actually be AutoGPT, right? So imagine something like this, AutoGPT, where you say, you, the three of you, you are in the marketing team. Your name is Isabella. You are a self-taught marketer. You've had internships with cut. You've been working as a marketer for 10 years. Your expertise is in social media, and performance marketing, whatever this initial phrase, the seed prompt, not seed phrase, seed prompt is, you could set up these agents and then have them interact with each other, right? Run this simulation. So I was talking with this to Varun, and Varun wants to run his own demo as well. Looking forward to seeing that. But this one, this is the paper, of course. This came out, I think, a couple days back, so a lot of people talking about it, of course. I want to see Varun's demo as well. I think one of the most interesting part about these kind of demos, or rather these research papers, is that they have done it once and then they've talked about their experience doing it, right? But you can run this as your own demo, right? No, I don't think they've made their steps very clear. They've made their setup and all this thing very clear. You could, for example, run a version of this. So coming back here, what does this mean? This means you could do simulations. But before that, I want to show you some of these related tools, right? So you get a much clearer, fuller picture of what this is. I want to show you Gather.town. Gather.town. I'm sure some of you have seen this, but basically what it is, it's kind of like Slack but Pokemon. So instead of being in Slack in a big corp, I can feel like I'm a part of the Silphco. I feel like I'm a part of Silphco, building technologies such as the Pokédex, the what's the viewer? Forgot what that's called. The doing research on Pokemon. I can feel like I'm a trainer here, and my boss is fucking Professor Oak. But anyway, this is a real tool that exists. Um, I actually do know a lot of people who use this. Personally, I've not used it in a real type setting. I've only checked out the demo. But just to imagine that, right? Doesn't matter whether it's Gather or Town or something else. One thing that's already happening is a lot of you might be working in a company where you've not interacted with most people, right? Maybe you're working remotely. And by the way, this has a bunch of cool interactions, such as when you walk up to somebody, instantly it starts a video call, right? So just purely in terms of UX, just think about this particular interaction here. What you would have to do otherwise is open Zoom, new meeting, copy link, open Slack, find person, paste, enter, open Zoom, start meeting, waiting room, disable waiting room, click, accept. Can you hear my audio? Can you hear my audio? Can you see my video? No, I'm not able to hear you. Think of that UX whole. Um, just think about that user journey and how it's been compressed into something like this, right? This small little feature here where you can walk up. I thought when this came out, I was like, wow, this is revolutionary, bro. And then, of course, you have your own kind of whiteboard, fig jam type of thing here. But overall, now that you have this, these, I want you as a designer to think about these as the building blocks. Think about these as the building blocks available to you. These are building blocks of software. How are you going to compose these in interesting and unique ways? As a designer today, in the last stream we talked about designer roadmap, right? And we talked about the whole interviewing thing and whole maramari of getting jobs and shit. But stuff like this, right, really helps you stand out. If a job is what you want, by the way, right? In in all of this, another assumption that we're playing with is that jobs is the model that holds this, right? And when I say model that holds this, it's the whole idea that you will get into a job which is a company that's been running before you, right? You understand some context, you work in a team, now you build some stuff together. Overall, this company is registered with the government, they have employees, they pay you a salary, and then you build products, right? That's the model in which most of this stuff happens. Now whether that model stays or switches to something like a DAO type of model or more solopreneurs, right? That's an open question. An open question not just for the industry but for you. Which of these models is best for you? Maybe it's freelancing. Anyway, the reason I mentioned that is it's not all about jobs and shit, but since we are talking about design, now when you see these individual, oh, ChatGPT is down. Let's try this again. Now, when you see these individual building blocks, this is the kind of stuff to explore if you're a designer, right? Think about how this can be useful. Now, just to really quick show you a demo, I'm going to open up Figma. I hope I don't have like 100 Figma tabs open. Think about that, guys. What does this enable now that we have the ability to do this? Number one, in my Slack, I am probably going to have non-humans as well, right? This is not new. We've had bots, right? Bots coexist with us in Slack, in Discord, except that these bots couldn't do too much. So that the expectations we had for the bots weren't too crazy, right? The expectation is, like, for example, just to give you some real context, if there is a Play Store review in a particular channel in Slack, post that review when it happens so that the support team, the quality assurance team, can look at that and take that as input, right? This is a way you kind of set up UX research, or basically just input. Let me not even call it UX research, input, where bots assist you, right? Similarly, let's say you have a bot that every day calculates what are your, like, let's say you're working at a company, your app store review, Play Store reviews, your average up and down, the sentiment analysis of your, this thing that you received, the customer care interactions plus this, and it could give you a report, right? Now, bots, of course, in general have already existed, but this seems to push that even further. You could have non-human digital entities that you kind of interact with. Now, let me show you some examples. Okay, I'm going to show you an example. This is kind of old, what I'm about to show you, but I just want to show you the general idea anyways. One second. Let's switch here to Figma. Oh, I was already in Figma. Okay, cool. I thought I was screen sharing Chrome. Okay, so here, this was an idea, I was just exploring a few years now. It's been a few years since I was exploring. But the idea was, how do we show presence, right? This was when remote work seemed to be at a peak, although this was still pre-COVID. So I wasn't so sure about that. But I was just thinking about what would it be like to have like some kind of status indicator that makes it feel like I'm in an office, even though we might be removed. How do we take away the negatives of being in an office, right? By using these digital presence tools in interesting ways, right? So imagine a little drop down that you had on your computer where you could see these avatars. You could see this person is running Figma. You could see this person's laptop is closed, right? Of course, these are just like examples. Just see what music they're listening to on Spotify, connections. Now, of course, this was just wireframe, just putting some ideas together. But did some research, found these tools which were primarily, let's just say, time zone tools, which is with a little bit of status indicator. So not too crazy value add or something. But Gather.town did not exist. So very interestingly, in 2019, when I started just thinking about these, Gather.town didn't exist. Although all the stuff that I'm showing you, eventually Gather.town is the one that kind of pulled it off, right? This, just to show you guys what's possible in Figma, you can make your own little Pokemon co-working spaces in Figma, just using pixels and moving them around. I've even created these components for table and shit, right? Putting down the floor and shadows here and stuff. But these are just layers in Figma. But anyway, that's not what I wanted to show you. Now, I was just exploring, dude. I was just exploring what were some possibilities, right? Whether if it could directly connect to Slack, right? Maybe you set up some initial channels. So like general, whoever's has access to the general channel, you could see their time zones and, could actually interact with them in some way. Was also thinking a little bit about the interaction model. So today when I see this, yeah, of course, it's kind of Gather.town. But what I was kind of imagining was like a Figma type of space where you have these multiple kind of areas and you have cursors and things like that. You have a link that you can share, just like a Zoom link. But of course, there's a lot of chat and things. Um, this is just pretty much just uh, Twitch chat. I've just put this here. But just this example, right? The reason I'm showing this to you guys is this is not new, right? Although I did this about 2 years ago at this point. I didn't end up building it because to build it, I would have had to hire developers and just I was not ready for it. Let me just be clear. But being a designer, I was glad that I could at least do a demo, right? And just with design alone, I was able to iterate and figure some of these things out, which is, let's say, if everybody is sitting around a certain table, that should probably auto initiate a meeting where all of you can start talking, right? And maybe it kind of blurs out the rest of the rooms because you're like kind of in the conversation. Just some iterations around that. But the point I wanted to show you, what is this? Okay, I don't remember exactly. The point I was trying to show you is when this was happening, the reason I was so motivated to do it was number one, I was like, what if work became Pokemon? That would be dope. What if you could also have some kind of non-Slack, like a 2D space, right? That you could actually just have a chat and just walk around and then collaboratively set this up. This is all Gather.town, but I just get an immense amount of validation. Just this is a very designer thing. Jumping on these trends early and designing stuff like this, it gives you validation when it eventually does come out. So I'm so crazy that this exists today already. But uh, the point I wanted to make is these kinds of explorations, right? Not possible to do all the time as a designer, but this is the alpha. This is the alpha. Being able to look at, a research paper, bro. The real world, nobody's reading research papers. But for a research paper that at least the people who are on Twitter came across, right? It's a popular paper. You have access to this. You don't even have to be a coder to really create just prototypes of futuristic concepts, right? What I showed you here. Now, I am not, I'll be clear, I did computer science, but I'm not really a hardcore developer, bro. I'm actually quite bad at that, right? But what I am good at is conceptualizing, right? Coming up with these. And I was like, let's just say 50% of the way there to hiring a team and actually just having this be my startup instead of 10K designers, right? This is, you can even see Unacademy product team. This was back when I was at a job. But coming here. So what exactly does this do? Can we use this for taking user interviews? The very interesting thing is you kind of can, but the validity of that is under question, right? So for example, you could set up a imaginary focus group here, but they would of course give you very uh, what do I say? They would give you very um, NPC answers, but then a lot in real life too, that those are the answers you get. But I don't know. The answer is, can I use this for user interviews? You can, but will you get any real insights out of this? No. But then the another thing is most people, even with real people, would not get real insights, right? That's just the nature of UX research. That's the nature of field research. It's just difficult to do, right? And a lot of the times people change their response based on you are coming to talk to them, and they get nervous, so they're like, sahi answer dena padega, so I can't just say what's on my mind, right? There's a lot of that stuff. So anyway, what else is possible from this? Let's check out in this paper. I think they put a few things. You could just let's just say, yeah, you could do AI focus groups. Technically, you could set this up, and to be honest, it would actually be quite legitimate, right? Because now what you could do, see, here's the difference here, right? When I'm saying this, I'm not saying you should do it. I'm saying you could do it. Big difference in should and could. I should means it's a good idea. Could means, yeah, you can do it, but there's no guarantee that you get out anything for your time spent, right? It might just lead to nowhere. But you could, for example, do an AI focus group. you could, the personas that you create, right? You could use these personas to actually create a simulation using this tech where you have these 10 people running and you actually give them certain information. Let me give you a more real example. How many of you, how many of you want to be active on Twitter, but then the minute you open the Twitter screen and you're now typing something out, you're like, what are people going to think? Should I really say this? Should I really type this? Everybody's going to read this. Should I? Like, I'm sure you've thought about that, right? That happens all the time. It's not just me. But to give you an example, there is possibly some world in which if you wanted to test your, let's say, how viral something is or how spreadable an idea is, right? Saying it this way versus this way, you could, for example, run a simulation where you are just saying it and you're seeing how it spreads, right? In the same way that here the party thing happened, right? Total of 12 agents heard about it. You could hypothetically, and this is like low stakes, right? Just two tweets create the people, right? Let's say your account, you are trying to do it for designers. The characters you would create would probably be designers. In fact, you could probably use real designers for this, but you can simulate this environment. Now, this is actually a big deal because the UX research world does not have access to shit like this, right? So this is something that's totally new. Now, of course, when you think about UX research, there is one part of it which is usability testing. You're testing this out with real people to see if they understand, are they able to do tasks, what are the difficulties, friction. There's a lot of field research as well. Field research where it might typically be trying to understand information like what does the life of a Gojek delivery person look like, right? A Swiggy delivery person look like. And now you create this profile based on this field research, and now you get deeper insights about how they live their life. How much money do they keep in their Swiggy wallet compared to their main wallet? Do they pay with cash, right? What if they want, what if, are, do they have savings, right? Things like that. You kind of see, there's no one answer, right? Because there are hundreds of people, in fact, there are thousands of delivery drivers. But this kind of field research, you don't usually know what you're looking for, right? You're going and observing a certain environment that exists. You're doing, you're trying to not change the results because you are there. You're trying to get observation as much as possible. But anyways, something like this has not really existed, right? So this is dope. um, Looking forward to seeing more applications of this. um, of course, just getting creative, I'm sure there's a lot more you can do. These are just some examples. But coming to the big question here, which is AI going to take my job? I have an update for you guys. Let me just get my notebook. I have an update for you guys on that question, okay? Will AI take my job? Constructed humanism. Yeah, for sure. The fact that it was so easy, right? Of course, seems easy to us today because we're like, oh, they're running ChatGPT or whatever. But to do a research paper of this particular, basically to do what they've done is not easy. Today we have the technology to do something like this, to the point where you and I are talking about what are the applications of this, what can we actually use this for. uh, but anyways, what was I gonna say, bro? Yeah, AI. I want to add some shit. The jobs wala question. Does AI take my job away? Now I can hide this. When you think about AI taking my job away, it's different depending on who you're talking about, right? If you are somebody who's starting out in your career, you have to think about AI as AI is increasing the floor, right? Let's say there is a floor of what, of the amount of effort it takes for you to enter the industry, get an internship, and all of that. It's raising the floor, right? So the even the minimum thing, which is let's say to get an internship in design, is getting harder. But to some extent, it's not increasing the ceiling yet, right? It kind of is showing signs of that. And that's the real thing that pulls all of this forward, which is when you have AI, right? The two groups I want you to think about is somebody who's at the start of their career, who's really the whole thing is about how do I get my first opportunity, versus somebody who's already in it. They have something going on, right? Let's say mid level. Now, this mid level person, the real question is, yeah, this becomes harder, right? The internship thing, because a lot of the um, there is a certain phrase, right, which is API. Are you below the API line or above the API line? What does that mean? It means something like Uber, when you order a cab, there is an API off. It's an API call and the car comes and shows up to you, right? Which is different from, let's just say, as an Uber driver, you are your individuality. There's not as much room for that, right? You're kind of below the API. With knowledge workers today, they are kind of going below the API line, right? They're kind of slipping below the API line. What that means is a lot of standard tasks that an intern would do, which is collecting reports, preparing presentations. And I'm not talking design intern, right? I'm talking more general today. Because, okay, I'm just talking more general. A lot of those kind of tasks, right? The lower tasks, yes, an AI tool can kind of do it for you, right? So one way to think about it is AI directly competing with you, but also indirectly competing with you, right? Directly competing with you because a lot of tasks now AI can do as an API call, right? Or let's just say tech, right? Not even saying AI, it can do an API call. So something like creating visuals for blog posts, creating visuals for the blog post, like the meta image and the header image and all that. Now, you had no choice but to get a visual design intern, somebody who would do this. But now you can use Midjourney. You can, after you're finished writing, just paste the whole thing into Midjourney and say, give me some suggestions for the title, and then give me some suggestions for what would be a good. You could do this in ChatGPT, by the way. Give me suggestions for what would be a good cover image, as well as the prompt for it. Find the best one, put it in Midjourney. Now, that's just an example of AI is directly competing with you, which is instead of that entry level position that actually makes these visual banners and graphics, it's now done with just a tool. But the way AI can indirectly compete with you is people who are already in a field using this to increase the floor, not the ceiling, which is to increase their capabilities of what was the max ceiling that I thought was possible of what I can do. So that is how AI is indirectly competing with you, because if there is somebody who uses these tools to create more leverage for them, if, to put it in a simple way, let's say a designer can now do the work of 10K designers, just kidding, can do the work of 10 designers, just to give you an example. Now, technically, now that is leverage, right? uh, let's say the individual tasks that I would hire an intern for, I can do those myself, but then one level further, I can use agent GPT. I don't have to really think about the prompts and whatever. I can just give this, and this kind of is a Slack bot that just does all this work, right? So with AI, in general, right, to be very upfront with you guys, it's something that I am, of course, also tracking very deeply, because I'll be very honest, guys. If we get to the point where UI UX design is kind of commoditized, like I'll stop doing the cohorts, right? I don't, in the end, want to sell you a fake product. The only reason we do these cohorts is because there's a need for these cohorts. But whenever that moment arrives where I, let's just say, without any biases, look at the field and I say, hey guys, like, I think it's over, I will honestly stop doing the cohorts, right? Just to give you an example. Not to say that we'll all stop doing everything we're doing, right? We will still figure out what do we do now. But yeah. Alok says, I might just stay in academia. Research and observing makes so much sense. Yeah, good idea. Good idea. I'm not so sure about that. But then, the it's hard to be sure about anything right now. It's not just you, right? I've been speaking to founders. I've been speaking to founders at early stage, Series A, uh, so on. सबकी लगी पड़ी हुई है, bro. To be very honest, सबकी लगी हुई है. By that I mean everybody is going through some shit right now. Um, for a lot of founders, it's a slow realization that, bro, a lot of the people we have in our company, it's not that AI is replacing them. It's that, bro, we didn't even try to replace them because it was just not possible. Right? We were just like, bro, it's far away. But now with Auto GPT, it's like, fuck, bro. Like, if there is a possibility that we can replace a team of, whatever, 100 people or something like that, it just, we didn't do it because it was not possible. But now, a little bit more effort and it's possible. Like, that's a very difficult decision as a founder, right? So, सबकी लगी पड़ी है. And the thing that I was just saying here is it's hard to be sure about anything because, in general, things that we thought were static are variables now, right? That's how different things are. So all we can literally do at this point is day by day do an update. If you're a designer, use some of these new things to figure out what is possible, right? If I was looking for a job, that's probably what I would be doing right now. In fact, if I was a developer, I would probably be doing exactly the same thing, making demos, right? Making demos to show that I'm up to date with this technology, and then probably using that as a way to team up with people to either build my own stuff or join early at a company that's building something new. Okay, guys, I think I might wrap up early today. Any questions? Anything you guys want to talk about? And it was a difficult one, bro. I'll be very honest with you. It was a difficult one. As I sat down and you know, the thing with AI is you have to update your models every couple of weeks, right? And that's a difficult thing. Just to give you a general idea, few weeks ago, if you were thinking about, what decision should I make based on the current level of AI, things are very different now, right? So any beliefs that you hold about ye ho sakta hai ya nahi ho sakta, right? Even something that you might have made a reel on or something, it changes because things are becoming more real. So what does this AI do for us? It's not going away though, right? The positive lining that I can give you guys, which is the question here, and do you see that happening? UX becoming commoditized. I saw this tweet. Let me show you this. I can just show you some signals, and I can show you what I mean by that. So who was this? Dharmesh? Was it Dharmesh? Um, User research is one of the first teams to be let go in layoffs. One of the first. Shouldn't you do this if you are pursuing profitability? I found this counterintuitive. Now, of course, you can see the responses and all this if you really want to go deep into this. But this is just an example, right? Um, User research, which is if you're a company who has a team that is dedicated to user research. Now, I want to make something very clear. As a product designer, if you're a product designer, right, UI, UX designer, user research is a part of what you do. But here, what Dharmesh is talking about is dedicated research teams, right? Their entire role is UX research. Now, this happening, right? And I trust Dharmesh when he says this because, he's very deeply connected in the research field, more than me, by the way, right? I am kind of more of a product design guy. Dharmesh is more of a UX research guy. But for Dharmesh to say this, it doesn't mean that user research become less important. It's just that when you have to take these tough calls, a lot of the easiest way to think about this is you have to think about where the money is, boss. Where does the money come from? And yes, user research is important. Yes, UX being commoditized, UX is definitely important for every business and it's going to stay that way. But if as a company, how do I say this? How do I say this in a very clear way that you understand this? As a company, I am going to take less risks. And so what that means is my designers, I'm going to hire fewer designers if I can, right? If there's so much work that I have no choice, then I'm going to hire more designers. But if I can hire fewer designers, I will do that. Secondly, I will not focus on random shit, right? Now, when recession and all this shit is happening, usually what companies do is there's a return to core business, right? On Academy, you're doing re-level, all of this, right? In a general, a company has multiple products. These products, there are multiple teams that work on them. But typically in a recession time, in uncertain times, there is a focus on core business. So UX is not going to be commoditized, but for to put it in a different way, for people who are starting out, you're going to have a much harder time finding a job. And that's the unfortunate truth. You're going to have a much harder time finding a job, even compared to 6 months ago, compared to a year ago, based on where we are. That does not mean hiring is not happening. Design hiring is ongoing, right? Companies who need to hire are hiring, but companies are taking fewer risks. And so fewer risks can also mean, instead of working on 5 products because we have the money to and we can afford it and our users have said that they need this, we will take the less risky route of working on 1 product. So instead of having designers that are working on 5, you have fewer designers who are good and they're just working on core product, right? That's the nature of these things. So when you think about it, it's not really the field that disappears. It's just based on your entry level, it might change, right? Saksham simping, bro. Chill, bro. Saksham, chill. What else? Design thinking, design intuition will still be valuable. Absolutely, right? But the main thing here is this kind of design thinking, design intuition will still be valuable, will grow outside of just designer roles, right? Today, as a head of product, to some extent, head of engineering, you do need to have design thinking and design intuition, right? Because that's the environment you operate in. But for early stage, difficult, bro. Um, Early stage is getting difficult. And to be honest, one of the reasons I'm kind of so deep into this shit today is I don't want to actually, I don't know if I should say this. I actually did not want to do a cohort because I was so unsure about this. But now I have more certainty. But my realization, the moral of the story after that was that it's going to get much harder. So to do a cohort in these times, it needs to be way better. Um, and that's what we're working on. Way better. The cohort itself needs to work harder in some ways, but what it comes down to, the person who's most affected would be you if you're in an entry level position. Um, you know, as much as possible, I like being honest with you guys, and yes, it's getting much harder. It's getting much harder to become a designer. Um, Fewer roles, companies, and fewer roles, not because design, there's no need for design. It's that companies want to take fewer risks. Now, this could change within the next couple of quarters, right? What I'm talking about, this doom and gloom scenario of being this hard, this could change just like that within the year, which is, with some of these, you might have some early wins that show bullishness, right? You could, of course, a lot of this will be from the top, right? Seeing developments from OpenAI, Microsoft, Google. But then the downstream of that is, with these new technologies that are available, what new companies can now be formed, right? That is your alpha here. Let's talk about alpha. What new companies is it possible to create today that it was not pre AI, right? Pre pre LLMs, pre GPT-3, GPT-4 that we have today. What companies were not possible to create? That's number one. Not a lot of new companies will be created. However, these new companies, they're not really going to hire 2, 5, 10, 20 designers right up front, right? They're going to hire 1 or 2 designers till they scale enough, have some more certainty, or raise a small round to be able to hire 2 or 3 designers. So it's still hard for you to be that 1 or 2 people who joins an early stage team, but there will be a lot more companies that are created. That's one positive lining here. More companies are going to be created because there's new possibilities now. Another silver lining here is that older companies, right? A lot of them layoffs, I believe. Now, this is a very doomer thing to say. I feel like there's going to be way more. there's going to be way more layoffs, unfortunately. That's just my guess, although I'm not so sure. I don't mean design layoffs. I just mean that the inefficiencies that AI can replace have not fully been found yet. So something like Agent GPT, you don't know which team within a 3,000 person organization just overnight theoretically has been possible to be replaced, right? So we have not removed those inefficiencies yet. But the positive lining on top of all of this is that it's a new paradigm shift. What do I mean by that? This is the start of the next smartphone, right? We've been talking about this particular theme over the last couple of streams, but this is an early technology that has not had its iPhone moment, right? You could say ChatGPT was that first iPhone moment where the general public was like, wow, this is magic. I can use this. But really, really, have we had that iPhone moment? That's a debatable thing, right? So, but in general, AI is not a thing that is not a disruptor that stops this entire engine. That's the main thing to understand here. What the promise of AI, if it was going to stop this entire engine, we honestly, AI would have gone away, right? We would have done something and no further development, because nobody wants their jobs to go away, the whole economic model to crash, and for countries to become Mad Max, right? Where you're just foraging. Nobody wants that. But the thing that AI will do is it's actually the biggest catalyst to this space. The reason you and I have UI, UX designer jobs, bro, is because the smartphone exists. Now, when the smartphone came out, it was a disruptor. Because what happens now to people who've built their entire career on web design, right? Will they adapt to this new thing? You have to train developers in an all new language, designing for an all new device, a phone, right? There's a lot of stuff that needs to happen. So similarly, this is that another iPhone moment. You and I here, we think about things like programming development, design as relatively stable jobs because they're in high demand, right? Although up and down, there is definitely elasticity of demand. But the reason that happened is because of the iPhone. It's because of these tech paradigm shifts, and we're in the middle of one. So what it's going to do is it's going to stop certain things, right? Things will change. The nature of work, the nature of teams, the nature of cooperation, the whole game changes. But then that's not a bad thing, guys. The good thing here is that it kind of levels out to some extent. I don't want to say levels the playing field because it's not exactly that. Let's just say when something new happens, everybody has a chance to get on something from day one, right? Today, I'm sure some of you feel like um, if I'm entering the industry so late, I've missed out on all this stuff. And maybe it's just because you were in college. But when a new paradigm shift comes, everybody's new, right? So to give you a development example, somebody who was coding before iPhone apps came out, right? They did not know Objective C, right? Objective C, which eventually became Swift, right? They knew C, but Objective C is still kind of different, right? So the advantage was a lot of newbie developers could directly learn Objective C and get over there, right? Just giving you a simple example. Similarly for Swift, right? Or some of these new Web3 technologies. Suddenly, you have as much experience as somebody who says, oh, I have 20 years of experience, but then the technology came out 2 months ago, right? So you have related experience. But anyways, all these things are new. We don't know how it goes. But what we do know is that when things get competitive, to some extent, it is felt. And this whole maramari of jobs, right? It's different for every person. Let me just say that. For somebody who's entering the industry, the whole maramari is around how do I get my first job, bro? Internships are down. Number of jobs for entry level are down, right? How do I get that? But on the late stage, it's about like even somebody who has 10 years of experience is facing uncertainty today because they are like, what if my company decides that I am no longer needed, right? I'm sure you've been following Facebook Meta. There's a bunch of layoffs. In fact, Meta probably going to be another layoff based on the rumors. But there is more pressure. There's more competitiveness, and so it's being felt throughout the board. Let me just say that, right? You, as somebody who's at the start of your industry, you might be feeling this a lot because you kind of might not have some anything else to compare it against. But even people who are 10, 20, 30 years of experience in tech, in related industries, are feeling that pinch, right? Let me just tell you that that pinch is of course different. It's not about can I get a job, will it replace my job. It's about, bro, the whole nature of things has changed. If you have 20 years of experience but suddenly the whole world itself changed, right? To give you an example, let's say the the things that you, if you have 20 years of experience in a certain playing field, and that whole playing field itself changes, your 20 years of experience, you have to translate it. It doesn't automatically become relevant. It in fact becomes outdated, right? So everybody is feeling that pinch, especially founders today, because they have to get a little bit more competitive. Focus needs to be a little bit on core business. But now suddenly with every single update like AutoGPT, they're realizing, wait, there are probably certain teams in my company that can be replaced. So we've not seen the full shakeout yet. But overall, I've said this before and I'll say this again. You do not want to be paralyzed by stuff like this, right? Neither do you want to become um, so it shouldn't overwhelm or saturate you so much that you start ignoring it, which is okay actually. But every once in a while you need to see, which is there something here that is alpha, right? Early technology shifts, crypto, Web3, if you were here for that, right, when it took off, you know what happened. It's all about alpha. Now, of course, alpha when it comes to AI is different from the type of alpha when it comes to Web3 and crypto, right? It kind of means something different. But in general, it's a piece of information that puts you ahead of the market, right? You get to see the future before everybody else. That's what alpha is, right? And the main way you get that is by talking to people who are thinking along that similar wavelength. Most of the world is not really thinking up every day and thinking, oh, AI, what's happening? They're just living their life, right? The effects of AI, they will feel it way later downstream. But I can tell you this, Bangalore, SF, the tech hubs, or let's just say the people at these tech hubs, this is kind of one of the big things on their mind. What happens exactly? Not just what happens from a passive observer kind of way, but what happens from, fuck, is there something I could be doing right now with these demos in my company, in my organization, that has a crazy cause and effect chain? So, for system level thinkers, for UX designers, this is actually the most interesting time to be alive, right? Honestly, as a UX designer, one of the most interesting times was definitely last decade with the whole app store thing. Right? Today, you and I know that unfortunately, I don't think there's going to be another YouTube, right? Unfortunate, but it wasn't like that, right? The space was kind of broad and very open. Like you don't know which app could be the next, this next big one. Now we kind of take it for granted that yeah, it's probably going to be one of these meta apps or um, whatever. But the point is that stagnation was definitely felt, right? Um, People in tech, we were just thinking about it. We were like, dude, like we're not going to launch another food delivery app. Right? We're not going to do another fucking, people running out of ideas, to be honest. And now suddenly there are new Lego blocks that have just rained on us. Not literally. Right? We've invented these as humans, but that's what makes this new. That's what makes this fresh. And so, as a designer, the job parts of it definitely scary. But if you are purely playing in the space of ideas and what's possible and doing demos and being a hacker, being somebody who is experimenting and prototyping, best time to be alive. Thank you all for joining this stream. See you in the next one. We have a bunch of stuff planned. Just letting you know, our next cohort, we will open applications in a couple of weeks. But as I expressed to you on this, I don't want to run the same cohort again, to be honest, right? The fact that we do these cohorts live fresh every single time means that we have the chance to update. So for us, the design, the problem statement is, if we have 3 months, 3 months, and we're creating a curated learning experience where you are going to join live, how do we create a weekly calendar? How do we create a monthly calendar? What are the tasks? What are the this thing? Keeping in mind that all these new building blocks exist. And I'll just say, not an easy challenge, right? Not an easy challenge. Technically, we didn't have to do this right now. We could have waited another year, to be honest, right? Most parents and shit don't know this. Like, if I was a, to be honest, if I was a boot camp, like a hardcore boot camp, I wouldn't make any changes. I'd be running at, you know, 4 cohorts, 8 cohorts a year. But since I have chosen this indie kind of path, one where I have a direct relationship to the audience, yeah, we're putting in that extra work. We're figuring it out. So you'll see a little bit more of that. You'll see more of what we have up to. But thank you all for joining. See you on another stream very soon. Bye bye. Chalo, guys.